The trial of the former La Mesa police officer accused of lying in a police report continues today. What that former officer had to say on the stand.
Is the Pfizer booster the best to beat the Omicron variant? What a new study is showing.
The latest push to get military bases to stop using dangerous chemicals that can seep into our drinking water.
Can people convicted of felonies in the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol still vote? We verified.
Some San Diego high schools may be put into a new sub-district. A look at the proposed redistricting map.
And you may want something big for the holidays, but these businesswomen hope that you
shop small.
News 8 starts now. Former La Mesa police officer Matthew Dagas takes the stand in his own defense just before closing arguments in his trial. Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Marcella Lee.
I'm Carlo Cicchetto. Dagas is accused of falsifying a police report related to the arrest of Amari Johnson back in May of 2020. That arrest helped trigger riots. Dagas was later fired by the department.
News 8's Shannon Hanny was in court today and has more on his testimony and what was said during closing arguments.
Dagas' testimony actually began yesterday. Today he was cross-examined before closing arguments began. Both sides have since rested, so this case is now in the hands of a jury.
When I write a police report, I want to be as accurate as possible and as thorough as possible to all the relevant facts.
For the second day in a row, former La Mesa police officer Matthew Dagas took the stand in his own defense, standing behind a report he wrote following the controversial arrest of Amari Johnson.
Okay, they right here, Bill. Oh my God, you're tough to come.
It happened in May of 2020 at the La Mesa trolley station. Cell phone video of the incident sparked outrage, with many accusing Dagas of racially profiling Johnson, who was standing outside a nearby apartment complex waiting for his friends. But Dagas' actions that day aren't on trial. It's what he wrote in a police report after. At the time, Dagas was taking part in a fair compliance operation with other officers and claimed he initially contacted Johnson for smoking and failing to have a trolley fare while being in a fair paid zone.
Why did you walk up to him?
Because of those observations that I had made.
Less than a minute after approaching Johnson, things escalated.
No, stop touching me, bro. Obviously, nobody's going nowhere.
Dagas alleged in his report that Johnson balled his fist, took a bladed stance, and struck him on the arm. The prosecution showed images and clips of the incident, saying Dagas was the aggressor, not Johnson. As for the smoking allegation, no cigarettes or smoking materials were ever found, something Dagas testified he confirmed following a search.
He only had keys, a set of keys, and his cell phone.
After hours of testimony, closing arguments began. The prosecution went first, reiterating what this trial is all about, whether or not Dagas lied in his report, something they say he did to try and defend his actions that day, especially given the outrage it caused.
There is no room for falsehoods in police reports. There can never be falsehoods in police reports that are relied upon deputy district attorneys to issue criminal charges.
The defense maintains nothing in Dagas' report is inaccurate. Of course, it's unclear how long the jury will deliberate. If found guilty, Dagas faces up to 3 years behind bars.
Okay, we got a break from showers today, but you will need your umbrella tomorrow.
Chief Meteorologist Carlene Chavis is here now to tell us when the next round of rain will be here. And Carlene, we will need those umbrellas this time. I got away with just holding my hands above my head.
And then running to the car.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no, you're going to need a whole lot more than that, Marcella. So, yeah, have your umbrella nice and ready. So, for tonight, we are talking about the return of spotty light rain and some drizzle. That's going to be around midnight all the way until 6 a.m. west of the mountains. Now, the rain does look to become more widespread by 6 a.m. to noon. And then the heaviest is expected tomorrow afternoon through the early evening hours. Setting the clock in motion, seeing the shower activity start to creep in once we get past midnight, seeing a line of showers extending all the way from Palomar Mountain down towards the South Bay around 5 in the morning, and then becoming more widespread as we get into about 8 a.m. Then we talk about the intensity picking up even more. That's going to be around 1 in the afternoon, and then you're seeing a lot more of that with the wave coming in right after that around 4:30, impacting from North County, moving in across much of the county, even the desert seeing this rainfall with this next system. They're just going to see less than, well, most of the county. We'll go ahead and break down the exact rainfall totals and yet another storm system after that that promises to bring even more rain. Marcella?
All right, Carlene, thanks. A father and son have been arrested and now face arson charges in that massive Caldor fire in the Lake Tahoe area. The fire broke out in August. It burned 300 square miles to the Nevada border and forced evacuations before it was finally contained back in October. According to the El Dorado County District Attorney's Office, David Smith and his son Travis Smith were arrested. They are accused of reckless arson in a warrant ahead of formal charges.
We now know the name of a man shot and killed during a confrontation at the Marine Corps Recruit Depot late last month. According to MCRD Public Affairs, Travers King was shot and killed after he tried to drive into the facility without permission and threatened, they say, military personnel with a knife. King was from Boston. The 36-year-old previously served in the Coast Guard and worked as an air conditioning technician at MCRD from March to November of this year. It's not clear if he still worked there at the time of the shooting. NCIS is still investigating.
Pfizer released new research today that says a third dose of its vaccine, a booster shot, gives substantial protection against the Omicron strain compared to having just 2 doses.
All this is preliminary data. News 8's Heather Hope spoke to a local doctor about the situation and about how soon we should expect to see data from other vaccine makers.
Doctors say that the Pfizer research still has to undergo scientific review, but the Pfizer team says that a third shot of its vaccine would strongly ward off the Omicron variant.
Having more is always good when it comes to this variant.
As scientific studies continue in the fight against COVID-19, Pfizer and BioNTech say they're the first vaccine maker to examine whether its booster dose will make a key difference against the Omicron variant.
To be protected of Omicron, you really need a 3-dose series of vaccination, and that's how we should look at it right now.
Pfizer's chief scientific officer says its 3 COVID-19 vaccine doses are enough to neutralize the Omicron variant. The company released its test results today after finding blood samples from boosted individuals held up against this new mutation.
If that does hold up on peer review, it goes along with what we know, which is that getting a third dose will give you some additional protection because it boosts the levels of your antibodies.
But how well do our current 2 or 1-dose vaccines hold up against Omicron? And should those who get a Moderna or Johnson & Johnson booster be worried they won't be as effective as Pfizer?
All the vaccines that we have available here in the United States are actually very protective. They're rock stars. They're really, really great. So there's no recommendation at this time to get one versus the other. You should get any that are FDA authorized.
Doctors believe Omicron could be the dominant strain in the U.S. by January. So far, data suggests Omicron may trigger less severe cases than the Delta variant, but could be much easier to spread. Dr. Alulade says the Pfizer booster study is still preliminary research that will be peer-reviewed in coming weeks, along with studies from other vaccine makers.
I do expect that within the next few weeks as well, we should see some information from Moderna and from Johnson & Johnson. So at this point, there's no evidence that one vaccine would be more protective than another against Omicron.
Heather Hope, News 8.
San Diego County says COVID-19 misinformation continues to be a problem and once again had a panel of doctors review comments made at yesterday's board meeting. Today, that independent panel responded to some of the more attention-grabbing claims made at the meeting.
Ivermectin, not just horse paste, and hydroxychloroquine, vitamin C and vitamin D, then the zinc and quercetin. I won't wear a useless mask. I don't need to stay at home.
On the NIH website, they run through 25 studies of ivermectin, and it's just not impressive. It, almost exactly equal to placebo in terms of many of the outcomes. And the few studies that have been positive showing an effect of ivermectin have been withdrawn because the data was falsified.
County officials say they will continue to do the best they can to fight back against misinformation.
Contaminated groundwater at local military bases will be the focus of a hearing in Washington, D.C. tomorrow.
U.S. Senator Alex Padilla from California says he has a lot of questions for the Department of Defense and why they are taking so long to clean up the mess. News 8's Steve Price takes a closer look at the problem.
They're called forever chemicals because they never break down, and for years they were used on hundreds of military bases across the country, including NAS North Island. According to a federal report, government officials knew for years that these could have serious health concerns, but they did nothing to immediately notify service members or surrounding communities.
It's outrageous to hear the stories from service members who raised their families near contaminated bases and didn't know about the danger until their children got sick.
Senator Alex Padilla is talking about PFAS, fire-resistant man-made chemicals that repel oil, grease, and water. For military firefighters, that made foam containing PFAS extremely effective against fires on base. But according to a federal report, the military has known for more than a decade that PFAS chemicals could carry a myriad of health problems, including cancer, fertility issues, and a decreased response to vaccines. But they continue to use them anyway.
For years and years, we've known that the military's heavy use of PFAS-based firefighting foam has impacted service members, their families, and surrounding communities. But now we have proof that the Department of Defense knew about these risks.
Making a bad situation worse, these dangerous chemicals can get into the groundwater. At Camp Pendleton, they were detected in drinking water as recently as 2019. NAS North Island has repeatedly tested positive for environmental contamination.
NAS North Island, where PFOA has been found at over 2,300 parts per trillion, and there are many other types of PFAS that have been found at similar levels.
Environmental groups suspect other bases in our county also have contamination, but don't have the testing to prove it. The Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs has a hearing Thursday to question the Department of Defense. Among their concerns, how many bases have contamination and what's going to be done to clean them up.
So tomorrow we'll press the Department of Defense on these failures and ask how they plan to complete the work of testing and cleaning up these bases, because military communities can't wait any longer.
Steve Price, News 8.